The rain fell in relentless sheets, drumming a furious rhythm on the roof of Elian's small cottage. Thunder shook the very timbers, but inside he was focused, grinding herbs by candlelight. At 30, Elian was known as the finest healer in the borderlands. People traveled for days to seek his remedies, but lately, fewer came. Whispers followed him like a shadow, rumors that he treated all who knocked on his door, even those the kingdom called monsters. Compassion isn't selective, he'd always say, a belief that had cost him friends and favor. Suddenly, a tremendous crash from the forest outside sent his pestle clattering to the floor. The ground itself trembled. Against his better judgment, Elian grabbed his lantern and cloak and stepped out into the storm. What he saw stole the breath from his lungs. A colossal creature had carved a path of destruction through the ancient trees, its scaled body gleaming crimson in the darkness. A fire drake, one of impossible size, its wings wider than 10 men standing shoulder to shoulder. Every instinct screamed at him to run. Fire drakes were death incarnate to his people, merciless raiders from the volcanic lands who left only ash in their wake. But this one wasn't moving. A dark liquid, black in the dim light, pooled beneath its form, washed away by the rain. Blood. Jagged wounds marred its hide, and one wing was twisted at a sickening, unnatural angle. "Ancestors, preserve me," Elian whispered, inching closer despite the fear coiling in his gut. The drake's eye, as large as a dinner plate, fluttered open. A slitted pupil of molten gold stared out from an emerald iris, filled with both sharp intelligence and blinding pain. A voice like smoke and velvet echoed not in the air but directly inside his mind. "Finish me, human! Take your trophy and be done." The voice was weary, resigned. Elian, still trembling, shook his head. "I'm a healer," he replied, his own voice barely a whisper against the storm. "Not a hunter." "Then you are a fool," the voice rasped in his thoughts. The drake's breathing was a labored, rattling sound, each exhale releasing a puff of steam into the cold, wet air. "Perhaps," Elian agreed, taking another slow, deliberate step forward. "But I've never turned away someone in need." A flicker of something, disbelief, contempt, crossed the great creature's eye. "I am not someone. I am Lysandra, sovereign of the eternal flame, ruler of the Ashen Court." Even near death, her pride was a palpable force. "Though it seems my reign ends here, in this muddy forest, betrayed by those who swore fealty." "Your reign isn't over yet," Elian said, his healer's instincts finally overriding his fear. He knelt, examining the nearest wound, a deep gash that would have killed any lesser creature instantly. "Not if I can help it?" "Why?" Lysandra's mental voice was sharp. "Why would you aid me, human? Your kind fears mine, hates mine." Without another word, Elian began unpacking his satchel of medicines. "Fear and hate come from not understanding each other," he said softly, beginning his work. "I prefer understanding to ignorance." For hours, Elian worked tirelessly under the driving rain. The wounds were grievous, coated with a dark, viscous poison designed specifically to kill firekin. He cleaned, stitched, and applied poultices, his hands moving with practiced skill. He spoke softly to the massive creature, telling her of herbs and seasons, his voice a low counterpoint to the thunder. By dawn, utter exhaustion finally claimed him, and he collapsed against the drake's surprisingly warm flank, his hands stained with her blood. He woke to silence. The rain had stopped. He found the drake had somehow dragged herself closer to his cottage. Her breathing was steadier, but a fever glazed her golden eyes. "You need shelter," he said, glancing from her immense form to his tiny home. "I can become smaller," she managed, her voice weaker now. "A final gift from my mother, but I haven't the strength." Elian nodded, his resolve hardening. "Then we wait, and I'll bring the shelter to you." For 3 days and nights, Elian built a makeshift pavilion around the wounded sovereign, tending her fever and changing her dressings. The few villagers who came seeking his help saw his patient and fled, their whispers quickly turning to shouts of outrage and fear in the nearby town. But Elian paid them no mind. He saw the bewilderment in Lyssandra's eyes, the grudging respect that was slowly replacing her pride. He knew that whatever consequences were coming, this was the right path. What he couldn't know was that this single act of compassion was about to change not just his life, but the fate of 2 kingdoms forever. Nico Thorne had always preferred the company of plants to people. His small cottage, tucked away at the edge of the Mistfall forest, was a sanctuary of herbal scents and carefully labeled remedies. The villagers of Aldermere tolerated his eccentric ways for one simple reason. His medicines worked wonders. Still, they whispered about the strange young man who spoke more freely to his garden than to any person. It was on the night of the autumn equinox that everything changed. The sky split open with thunder, rain lashing against his windows like desperate fingers. Between flashes of lightning, Nico glimpsed something impossible, a massive shape plummeting from the clouds, trailing fire despite the downpour. Madness, he muttered to himself the next morning, pulling on his worn leather boots. But curiosity tugged at him, an insistent pull he couldn't ignore. He packed his satchel with herbs, bandages, and tinctures, a healer's instinct taking over. The forest floor was still smoldering in places. A trail of broken branches and scorched earth led him deeper than he had ever dared to venture before. And there, in the heart of some ancient blackened ruins, he found her. At first, Nico thought it was a fallen star, a mass of crimson scales glistening like rubies. Then it moved, and he froze. A dragon. This wasn't a beast from a tavern tale. This was something far more terrifying. Intelligent, wounded, and watching him with eyes like molten gold. One wing stretched magnificently, a testament to its power. The other hung at an unnatural angle, the membrane torn and bleeding. Obsidian claws gouged the earth as the creature tried to rise, only to collapse with a sound that pierced Nico's heart. It wasn't a roar, but a whimper. "Don't," he said softly, his own voice surprising him. "You'll only make it worse." The dragon's head swung toward him, nostrils flaring, heat shimmering around her jaws. "If you burn me," Nico continued, slowly lowering his satchel, "you lose your only chance at healing that wing properly." Minutes stretched between them in a silent negotiation. Finally, the massive head lowered, those golden eyes never leaving his. For weeks, Nico lived a double life. By day, he was the village healer, tending to coughs and scrapes. By night, he slipped away to the ruins where the dragon, Seraphina, a name she had somehow conveyed to him, was waiting. He splinted the wing with fallen branches and bound her wounds with poultices of yarrow and comfrey. He spoke to fill the silence, sharing stories he'd never told anyone. "My mother taught me healing," he told Seraphina one night, carefully applying a salve to her mending wing. "Before the fever took her, she said gifts weren't meant to be hoarded." He laughed softly. "I suppose I inherited more than just her knowledge." Seraphina's rumbling purr vibrated through the stones. Over time, Nico realized she understood every word. Her eyes held an ancient curiosity, something far beyond animal instinct. One evening, as distant horns announced a royal hunting party, he whispered, "They'd hunt you if they knew. Humans fear what they don't understand. I've learned that lesson well enough myself." As autumn deepened into winter, Seraphina's strength returned. The magnificent wing, once shattered, now stretched toward the sky during their exercises. Nico felt a bittersweet pride watching her test it with increasing confidence. Then, on the day of the first snow, she was gone. The ruins stood empty. All that remained was a single scale the color of sunset, warm to the touch even in the bitter cold. Nico returned to his solitary life, the scale hidden beneath his shirt, a secret kept close to his heart. He told himself it was for the best. Dragons belonged to legend, not to lonely herbalists. But in his dreams, he still flew. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. If you enjoyed this story, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more tales from realms of magic and wonder. We'll see you in the next one.